Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Just Another G.I. Joe show, episode number 34, actually. We missed the last episode because Fred was a little under the weather, so we'll leave it at that. But anyways, we're back on live tonight, and we actually have a special guest, Brandon Jerwa. I'll probably say it wrong still if I said it to myself 5 or 6 times.
No, it's Brandon. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, we got Brandon on. We actually been trying to get you on for at least a year, was it? It's been a while. Yeah. So, Fred, I'm going to let you lead this one because this was pretty much your baby.
Okay. Well, for
Mike,
those of you,
like me, does he? That's what it is. Mike doesn't like me.
It has nothing to do with that.
It's because we were talking about Tiger Force before we went live, and Mike just can't handle the truth. I'm sorry, man.
I'm sorry. At some point before this is over, because I know Mike's a toy guy and you're a comic guy, we're going to have to talk about our favorite figures when we were a kid, because I want Mike included. But I demand an explanation as to the appeal of Tiger Force. I don't get it. I just want it explained to me. That's all. That's all. You can take all the time you need, Mike. I'm sure you have a manifesto already written, but
no, it's just one word: greatness. That's it.
Boy.
All right. So for those of you out there who have been living under a rock, you may not know that there were actually 3 companies that published a substantial amount of G.I. Joe comics. There was the classic Marvel era. There's the current IDW era, but sandwiched in the middle in the early 2000s, we had Devil's Due Publishing. And tonight our special guest was I would say one of the primary writers of that era. His work includes the famed history repeating arc in the secondary series Frontline, which brought Chuckles back to popularity. He wrote the Real American Hero title, I believe, from issue 23 or 24 for Real American Hero Volume 2, all the way to its second to last issue. He gave us the 2 Master and Apprentice miniseries, as well as Snake Eyes Declassified. Brandon, am I missing anything?
I'm dashingly handsome. I have a boyish charm. I'm hilarious and scary all at once. No, that's it. I did some, if we're going down the whole list, I did some toy stuff, like the Ninja Wars. Ninja Wars, is that what it's called? Ninja Wars comic, I think. The
Ninja Battles. Yes, the Ninja Battles comic.
Yes, that's right. The movie was Ninja Wars, and right. And then some other toy stuff. But yeah, no, that's the comic stuff.
So okay, let's flash back here to it's the year 2000 or 2002. And how did you come to work with so pre-Frontline, how did you come to work with Devil's Due? How did you actually get the opportunity to write that history repeating arc, which brought back Vance Wingfield from way back in the Marvel era? You went deep with that one. You did the comic intro of Crosshair appeared in your issues. And then, man, you brought Chuckles back hard. So, and this shirt is not an homage. It just happened to be what I'm wearing.
Oh, well. Look at that. So, let's see. I had been a radio DJ for a few years, and radio was dying. And so I left radio, and my wife at the time and I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I became what the employment department of Oregon called a displaced professional, in that by their estimation, I should probably start looking for a different job because mine was not a viable occupation anymore. So I told my wife, hey, we've got a young child. It's fine for me to work from home while I look for a job. It's fine for me to be at home. We don't need me to run out and get a job. So I'll be the stay-at-home dad for a while, and I'm going to try to write comic books. And she said, great. Just have a plan B. And I said, yeah, fine. And this is no joke. And I mean, I'll tell you a funny story after I tell you this, but what I did, Devil's Due, I think, was on issue 3, right, of their run, which was, of course, continuing the Marvel continuity that I'd grown up with, and I was reading it, and I mean, I literally just treated it like I was applying for a job. I sent them a letter of inquiry, and hi, my name's Brandon. Da, 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 da. I'd really love to write G.I. Joe. I'm 12. No, but because I mean, it was really sort of that naive and that earnest. I'd really love to write G.I. Joe, and I just treated it like I was applying for a job. And to my shock, they responded to me fairly quickly and said, "We'd love to look at your." Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the part where I wrote a script. Sorry. I wrote a script. I didn't even know what a comic strip looked like. I went to the Dark Horse website and downloaded their comic format. And I just wrote a 2-part story, the first 2 parts of History Repeated, almost exactly the way you read them. And then, they said, we'd like to see your script. So I sent it to them, and they said, we're doing this anthology series, and we'd love to slot you in here. This is really great. And I said, wonderful. And then when we got into the story meeting, I ran down the story for the first 2 issues, and then it was only ever supposed to be a 2-parter in my head. And they said, so how soon can you write the other 2 parts? And I said, immediately. And that was the whole conversation we had about the fact that it was going to be 4 parts. They said 4 parts. I'm like, yep, that's right, 4 parts. And then, I mean, if you look at it, there's sort of a story break, as if it's 2 2-part stories that just happen to continue the same thing. But it really was a total fluke. And then they had me rewrite the dialogue for 1 issue of Frontline that was written by a couple of writers of Friends. And then along the way, I became friends with Dan Jolly, who I'm still friends with to this day. He's a swell guy. And then it turned out that we were both up for taking over the main series. And we're literally calling each other, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? And we're becoming very good friends at the same time we're competing for a gig. And then the rest is history.
Okay, so you were already a Joe fan when you stepped in. And if anybody's read...
Huge.
Again, History Repeating... there's so many nods and so many little touches back to the classic Marvel and Sunbow, because for those of you who may not remember this, the Devil's Due era in their Real American Hero title actually blended in elements of Sunbow and Marvel together. It was mostly Marvel, but there were Sunbow touches in there. Like you had your first issue, you featured a group of Joes that usually you didn't see working together. And one of them is a bit of a practical joker, which I believe that carried over more from the Sunbow era.
Yeah. It's in his file card, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that it's in his file card. But yeah, no, I know that there were people who were never, ever happy that I would nod to the cartoon. Like, people didn't like that I used Hector Ramirez, and I just thought it was fun and didn't hurt anything. But there were some people who I think made decisions pretty immediately. They're like, well, he's obviously trying to turn this into the cartoon. So,
what guidance did you get? Any guidance, especially from History Repeating going into the main title? I know, like Larry Hama mentioned back in the day, that he would, be told, okay, we need to do an issue featuring these characters because they were going to be hitting store shelves back in the classic era. So it was pretty much whoever you wanted to play with out of the sandbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I will tell you, in History Repeating, Flint does a hostage negotiation.
Yes.
With the Wingfields and on the airplane, and he's on the tarmac. One of the few times I ever got told I couldn't do something, and I still don't understand it to this day, because then they let me do all kinds of things. That was supposed to be Bullhorn. Oh. And they said, nobody knows who Bullhorn is. And I said, well, I do.
Apparently they didn't watch the Deke era so much.
I try to play to specialties when I can. And so yeah, that was supposed to be Bullhorn. And they're like, could it be somebody better like Flint? I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But no, I chose to incorporate the toys because I thought barrel roll was cool. Like, I chose to use those. Nobody ever told me you have to use this. I mean, there were certain stipulations in place in regards to who would die.
Yes.
When the wholesale slaughter happened, as I was coming on board, there was a list of people to kill. Yeah, for sure.
So the deaths in 25. For those of you who may not have read it, Brandon came on right at the time when the Joes did a full-scale assault on Cobra Island.
True story.
Like quite honestly, bigger, almost more massive. To me, it was more massive in scale even than when the Joes took Springfield in the Marvel era, because the stakes were pretty high there, and we had casualties again, and so those were Hasbro directed.
Yes. Well, I mean, I was given a list by Devil's Due, so I assume that probably came from Hasbro. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned the Battle of Springfield. Like, for me, in working on that battle, that invasion of Cobra Island, and I was only co-writing it, but I did have a pretty hand in it. The Battle of Springfield was the high water mark for me. That to me is still one of the best fights ever in G.I. Joe.
Oh yes, single issue. It was incredibly tight and
incredibly tight.
I mean, everybody likes Cobra Civil War, but that was stretched out over 3 issues.
Yeah.
So okay.
listen to us talking about when things were stretched over 3 issues, right? Like now it's like 12 parts, 24 parts, 3 years. We're like, oh, that one went for 3 whole issues, 66 pages. Oh boy.
So. Okay, so when you started the main title, again, you were co-writing for a bit because you were finishing up a current storyline.
Yeah.
Then at that point, so Cobra Island, the big battle, everything happens, and then at that point, was it pretty much, hey kid, here's the keys, don't dent it too much, or?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I had turned in outlines well in advance. We would tinker with those a little bit, but it's important to note, and I don't remember when they came on. Mark Powers came on as editor, and Mark kind of let me do what I was going to do, and he would give me feedback, certainly, and then a different editor came on, Mike O'Sullivan, and I mean, okay, I'm going to say this because it doesn't matter. And I in conversations with Mike over the years, I feel like I'm not telling a tale out of school. But Devil's Due was not a heavy editorial company. Like, it was a big deal that they hired editors because they were just doing it internally. They were a small company. And they had put that stuff on the ground themselves. So why not be the overseers of that content? But they did need an editor, and I needed an editor, and I didn't even know that because I was a new writer. I didn't know I needed an editor. And the unfortunate truth is that they wanted to do other things with Joe, but had let me just do whatever I wanted for a while. And so when Mike came in, he's like, I'm here to rein you in.
Got it.
And kind of came across a little heavy. And later we talked about it, and he's like, look, they told me I needed to come in and tell you I'm just here to rein you in. And when all is said and done, Mark Powers and Mike O'Sullivan are great guys, and they were probably given a pretty hard job to do because, Devil's Due wanted to lean really hard into Reloaded. And so I was just sort of on this thing that may or may not succeed and could be completely usurped by this new version, which at the time I was deathly afraid of because it seemed like it would work. Reloaded seemed to me like it was going to work.
Yeah.
As an outside viewing party. But it didn't, obviously. At least not as well as they wanted it to. Which is a shame. I would love to think that there's a world where G.I. Joe can sustain multiple iterations like Spider-Man or like anything else, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's the control got very, very tight at the end but they were trying to do a thing, and obviously in a big transition, so I can't begrudge them that. I think that we didn't always get the 100% best comic we could out of the situation because we were all working for the same thing, but we weren't working together as well as we should have. And that's literally as much my fault as it is anybody. So it was a lot of strange bedfellows just all of a sudden being put together. But like Master and Apprentice, I got to do whatever the hell I wanted. Master and Apprentice 2, I got to do whatever the hell I wanted. Snake Eyes, not so much, but that was different because I was beholden to something else anyway. So, and when I say that, when I did Snake Eyes, I did everything I wanted to do, except reveal his name. They said, yeah, you can't do that. Somebody told me one hidden somewhere in the book, because I have a name for Snake Eyes, and I gave it to them. And the editor rightfully said, here's the thing. The reason we're not going to reveal his name is because no one will ever be happy with what it is. Right? No matter what you say Snake Eyes' name is, someone will not like it. It will be underwhelming because I gave him normal name. The name I gave him was normal. Because he's a normal guy.
You know, and I think that's an interesting point. I want to come back to Snake Eyes in a minute, but you talked about Master and Apprentice. So I remember when that came out, and Kamakura was Devil's Due's new character on the Joe team. He was the apprentice to Snake Eyes. I'm trying to remember if his identity was revealed in your book or if it was beforehand, but so you're tasked with telling the story of essentially a background Marvel character grown up.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Kamakura is Sean Collins, so it's Wade Collins' son. It's the kid that wrote Snake Eyes the letter in issue 155.
Yes.
And what was it like to pick up that story? I mean, because where do you go with that?
I want to say that it was revealed in Master and Apprentice #1, and my recollection is that Josh Blaylock created Kamakura and use him in Master and Apprentice. I believe, if I remember correctly, I was given the choice because it had not been stated that he was Wade's son. And if I wanted to go that way, I could, or I could avoid it, or I could come up with another option that we could review. And I love the Marvel run, so why would I not make him Wade's son? Like, why not make it exactly that? And plus, there's that whole sort of generational military aspect that I think is very realistic and probably speaks to a lot of Joe fans, especially the ones who are in the military, because I have a feeling I know why they're in the military, largely. I grew up next to Fort Riley, Kansas, and I loved G.I. Joe. There were a lot of long moments when I just assumed I was just going to march right onto that fort when I was 18 and get my football jersey and my rocket launcher and just, that's how everything works. But I think I was given the choice. And for me, Wade Collins was always a fascinating character to me. And I mean, he was a background character, but he also had an important part to play.
Yeah.
I think Mike's asleep.
No, I'm not. My dogs are here moaning.
So, yeah. And I always dug the Crimson Guard, too. I always thought the Crimson Guard was one of the coolest parts of Cobra.
Just like Tiger Force is the best thing to G.I. Joe, right?
Oh, here we go.
Sorry, you're going through a tunnel.
I can't mute him. I don't have control. Yeah. So then Master and Apprentice 2 comes out, and you flipped everything on its ear because you did a Storm Shadow. Now, suddenly Storm Shadow had an apprentice, but...
Oh, we should have called it Suddenly Storm Shadow. Damn it.
But the thing I thought was interesting is where Snake Eyes in Master and Apprentice 1 is ultimately successful with Kamakura. Storm Shadow, you played on, you deliberately, it seems like, played off the fact that Thomas Arashikage has just horrible luck. No matter it's kind of like when Joe Kelly wrote Deadpool without the comedy. No matter what he tries, there's always it never works out where like, man, Storm Shadow's gonna end up happy. Nope. And so for that one, again, Master and Apprentice 1 was incredibly well received with the fandom at the time. Yeah, really, and then so you came to do Master and Apprentice 2. Which again now is the Cobra, the more Storm Shadow side. You went deep on the ninjas, and got into some international characters.
Yeah.
So how did all that? I mean, like again, what led you to pick some of these characters? And is it was it something that you were like, man, I just feel like I need to tell this story, or did it kind of evolve as you were putting it together?
Well, I definitely wanted to play on the notion of the ninjas having a sort of separate family, right? Like, and there was a moment when I was sort of looking at Jabang and Nunchuck, and I'm like, wow, these are interesting characters. How do I turn these into a thing? And I had a moment where I thought about just creating a whole bunch of new ninjas, and I thought that was really sort of insincere to why I was here in the first place, and why not take these things and try to legitimize them. They have ridiculous names. Okay, Nunchuck is a terrible name for anyone, but I just tried to turn him into a character that I liked, and the same with I don't even know how to say his name.
So he was releasing a concept, and people finally, it's Shabang.
Oh, that's worse.
Which means William Hung is going to be singing about him anytime now.
What a timely reference, Fred.
Oh, I know. I'm stuck in the past.
Material, buddy. Fred's got a lot of William Hung jokes, everybody. No. You got anything on airline food? No. But I wanted to, and Satan, like, I'll never live that one down.
Oh,
that's a bad verbal joke, and I sorry, but I had to do it. I had to do it. And I thought he was cool.
Oh, look, again, you took an international name that was never going to fly and went phonetic with it, and it worked. Who's Ninja? What Ninja? Hi, Ninja. What's your name? I'm Satan. It's just somewhere cool. A Baptist is freaking out right now, but
that's right.
So a big part of your book seemed to be connecting the past, but still evolving the present. And I noticed that throughout the entire run on the main title, is you really made an effort. The existing Joes, the Joes that those of us who remember the Marvel series, which should be everybody, they were in leadership positions, and then you brought, you had the issue where you revealed the young guns, that were all in there with Mariner and a lot of those. And so again, how conscious was that? I mean, that you were trying to deliberately connect the past and the present.
Very conscious, very conscious. I mean, like, some of the stuff that you read literally goes back to me playing as a kid. Like, I mean, I can't tell you, and I'm sure I'm in no way special when I say this. I'm sure you were the same way. I'm 100% sure Tiger Force Mike was this way. Like, I used to, when I would play G.I. Joe, like, it was a whole day. Like, I would set aside the time, and like, I had continuity.
Oh yeah.
And I would write stuff down. Like, if stuff happened, I had a notebook, right, to keep track of what had happened. I would never take my G.I. Joe figures outside. I never taped firecrackers to their asses. Like, I treated them pristinely, and then I just gave them away to the kids next door one day because turns out I liked girls, and I figured out very quickly that girls weren't going to come over and play with my G.I. Joe figures, so I just gave them all away one day. Terrible. Never met a woman in my life who was worth giving away my G.I. Joe figures. But sorry, honey. Yeah, so I mean that was it, the tie to the past was something I was always going to do because that's what it is for me, you know. And like bringing in the new guns, I'll tell you that is which issue is the pipeline ploy? Is that issue 10?
Yes, yeah, because that was Gung Ho and Doc and all of them, yeah.
Right, and that is literally me trying to recreate the feeling of here's this mission and here's all these new guys, because I was so excited because I got G.I. Joe number 10 and I bought the Polar Battle Bear like the next day.
Yeah.
And from then on, like Snow Job was always one of my favorites. I tried to use Doc everywhere. Like any mission I sent the Joes on, Doc or Lifeline was there. Breaker or Dial Tone was there.
Nice.
The Vamp was always involved. Because I still think, pound for pound, one of the greatest G.I. Joes of all time, the Vamp. It's simple, it's perfect, don't mess with it.
Preach on, brother.
I'm sure there's a Tiger Force version, Mike. You can play with your Tiger.
I'll find one.
There is actually, sadly, but
Not sadly.
Not sad. No,
It's
okay.
not sad. It's glorious.
Let's talk about this for a second. Can I derail for a second?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me about Tiger Force. Like, make me love Tiger Force. And I'm giving you a hard time because I know you're passionate about this, and I just want to hear it from your lips. I have no problem. Let me be on record. I have no problem with Tiger Force. I just don't understand the appeal.
I just, there's all kinds of different sub teams throughout, G.I. Joe and everything, and that's just the one that I appealed to as a child was Tiger Force. And I've actually stuck with it. And when they did Tiger Force in 2015 in Springfield, of all places, it just brought me back to my childhood again. And then we're getting, all these modern figures, and I don't have the vintage ones no more, stuff of that nature. So, it just makes me a kid again. The real reason I stick with Tiger Force more than anything else was that this was my second Joe Con. And I always do a golden ticket, and I always split it, and I get everyone else's exclusives. And I come out of the room, and I was with a couple of buddies, and I had this big, huge box, had all this stuff in there, times 3 of everything. And I'm just going through it all, double checking everything. And this guy comes down, has a Chuckle shirt on, and he just starts talking to me. He says, "Hey, how this is the exclusives?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and we started talking it up and everything. Didn't know this man from Adam. And here comes Brian Savage and gives him his VIP pass. It was Daryl DePriest.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was. And then, it's just the point he knew about Tiger Force. I was surprised. And, it just stuck with me, and I've just ran with it for right now. I mean, Fred gives me a hard time on it, and I've come used to it. But you just wait till Joe Con, buddy. I'm going all out.
And Brandon, we had a bet at the last Joe Con when Mike was there that we did a live show from outside the dealer's room. And I told Mike, he was getting people as they were coming out to pop on. We got like the voice of Big Lob, and we got a bunch of people to Daryl came in for a bit. And I told Mike, if he could get Brian Savage to come on the show, I would wear Tiger Force clothes for the next 5 shows. And he did. Savage popped in for a total of 15 seconds.
Just to tell you, you lost.
And I had to wear a Tiger. I got a T-shirt made with the European Outback Tiger Force logo on it. And I wore that for several weeks. So,
wow.
That's just me. I mean, I like Tiger Force. I mean, you have to have, there's so much G.I. Joe and so many subgroups and so many of this and so many of that. You need to, if you're a small-time collector, and you want to stick with one thing, then you got to pick with it and run with it. And Tiger Force has been it with me. And of course, bats. I like bats. So, I mean, you stick with what you like.
I like bats too. One of my favorite subgroups is the one that is aged the worst, Battle Force 2000, which is barely a subgroup. That's really sort of a, spin-off thing. I always hoped, for me, I don't know why, maybe because I lived in Colorado a lot and I love the snow. I had always hoped that we would get literally just a whole slew of Arctic versions of every character.
Right.
Lord, I've made enough of them. Right. Like, if everybody had snow gear, I'd buy every figure. I'd buy my least favorite character if he had snow gear. So yeah, no, That's cool. Now I'm gonna go buy a bunch of Tiger Force stuff. No, I'm not.
Oh,
Convention stuff. I'm sure it's
oh.
expensive, right? It's convention stuff. I'm sure it's pretty spendy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
surprisingly, that set has held value and then some. I'm really surprised.
Yeah, it has. So, okay, I want to ask you, Brandon, I want to ask you a question about, you actually had the privilege of creating a new version of an existing character and then a whole brand new character that was introduced into the mythos for a while, and with Wraith, for example. And Wraith actually ended up becoming a figure. So,
yes.
And what I was curious is okay, so it's one thing to write the comic, and you said you had pretty fair reign, but it's another thing to create something that goes all the way through Hasbro to come out and be produced. And I was curious, like, what was that like? I mean, what was their approval like, etc.?
That was wild. They basically, I came up with Wraith, and Devil's Due really loved him, and they said, look, we want to introduce Wraith in a backup story. Like, we want to, and I'm like, okay. Like, I was just going to introduce this character and try to make him cool. And they're like, no, we're going to actually focus on him. And they did that backup story. It was crazy. It was like, okay, well, I sure hope this doesn't suck. And I don't remember any slowdown from Hasbro about it at all. They really ran with it. And yeah, I have a Wraith figure, and I have a stealth Wraith figure. And it's amazing. And I would never have believed in a million years that the figure, the character would have taken off like that. I really liked Wraith. Didn't they end up shooting him in the face after they moved on from me?
Oh, a lot of people died in that arc. So
the one thing that you probably will never see, and it's a shame, that one cover, it's a cover with Wraith on it, and he's on a rooftop, and he's sort of half phasing, and there's a giant full moon behind him. Do you know this cover?
Yes.
Okay, so take out the moon. But there was a company, I don't know who, I'm not being coy, I don't remember who, and they may not even exist now. They made a statue of that.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's that pose, right? It's that pose. He's got the blade extended and everything. And I got to see pictures, like turnarounds of that. And it was beautiful and amazing. And like, seeing a figure was weird enough, but this was so, like, this was one of the best statues I've ever seen of anything. And it was unbelievable. And it never happened apparently. But that was the real staggering moment. But seeing Wraith in stores, very, very odd. Very, very odd. Good odd. Very good odd. But, like, that was the weird thing is, there was that, and then they made me into Dragonsky, and I got to be on a game show.
I remember that.
Which, by the way, I have a DVD of, and I'm going to see if I can legally put it online. I wrote the company. I said, hey, I was on your show. And they said, oh, yeah, you're the G.I. Joe guy. And I had a DVD like 3 days later. And the show's been off for years.
Wow.
But to walk into a Hollywood production office on the Game Show Network studio lot and see multiple versions of myself fornicating with myself. No joke. I walked in the production office, and there's literally multiple Dragonskys humping each other. And they looked at me and they're like, oh, that's you, huh? Oh, sorry.
We're just going to move this one over here now. So, okay, and that's another story. How did they end up picking you to be the head of Dragonsky? And Dragonsky was in one of for those of you tuning, it was the O-Ring era comic packs, and it was, oh boy, is it Wong? And not Wong. I'm trying to think who the characters were. I'm terrible about this, but it was Dragonsky and Gorky and Misha. It was Misha. Wong was in the cartoon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. I knew that. So what happened was I was at the San Diego Comic-Con, and I was signing, and Dwight Stahl. You know Dwight?
Oh yes.
Okay. Best guy on earth, Dwight Stahl, as far as I'm concerned.
Barrel roll.
What's that?
Cough, barrel roll.
Cough, barrel roll, and Blackout, his brother.
Yep.
And again, I chose to use those characters, so it wasn't like they mandated it. But he's literally a G.I. Joe character, and he came up and he said, "Man, I can't believe you used me and my brother. Like you didn't have to do that." And I was like, "But I like them."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, listen, we were going to do this anyway, but now we're definitely going to do this. I need to get some headshots of you." And I said, "Really? For what?" And he goes, "Oh, nothing." Okay. And he knew I knew exactly what the hell he was talking about. And he said, "Does anybody want to be?" And I don't laugh at me, guys, but this I thought it would be a good use. I wanted to be Dodger. I wanted to be Dodger or Airtight because even though we know what Airtight looks like in the comics, we'd never seen him with a head as a figure at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a head, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, and he said, "Well, nah, probably not, but cool." And then they told me I was going to be Dragonsky, and I thought that was super exciting. And I've got that awesome purple suit and a flamethrower.
It's the dream.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. When I did the game show, the costuming people, if you look, they tried to dress me like my figure, but unfortunately, I look like a lounge singer because I'm wearing purple and a vest. Like, there's pictures on my Facebook page. You can see what I'm wearing. Yeah, they made me take off my jacket when they finally showed the figure because I kind of looked like it. I didn't look like it at all. But yeah, I'm the purple flamethrower dude. The Russian purple flamethrower dude. No collusion.
Well, because the accent is so spot on.
Yes.
So
I must cook you.
So before we talk Snake Eyes, because that's a whole nother
True.
A whole nother thing. Do you have any favorite moments from the primary? For any favorite story moments? Any favorite beats that scenes that you were just like, man, yeah, that was awesome that you wrote?
Jeez, I don't know, and I'm not. It's not false modesty. This was a long time ago now.
I know. What am I thinking asking you this?
I was really seriously. I don't think I've ever been happier with something than I have all of Master and Apprentice 1. I that just came out the way I wanted it to. Stefano Caselli, who is now he's drawing the Avengers.
Yeah.
He crushed it. Let me tell you something interesting about the magic of comics, if I could, real quick. Sundar Raj, who colored that book and did a great job coloring it, I want to say that he lived or lives in Indonesia. And with the exchange rate, I guess, his first check from Master and Apprentice 1, he bought his mother a house.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And I like, that's great. That's amazing. Right. And I don't know how that all mathematically works out, but, I want to say that he bought himself a house and his mother a house with his Master and Apprentice earnings, which were not much by any standard. Like, Devils do pay the industry rate, so let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's very formative kind of situation there, for a guy to come in and color this book and do such a great job and then to have it change his life like that. I thought was cool. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to get tangential. I liked General Ray was a real weird out of left field idea that I had, and that ended up paying off pretty well, I thought. He's one that I expected to become a figure after a while because Devils do certainly like General Ray a lot.
I'm surprised
seem to like General Ray.
So actually, before we talk, that's actually I had that on my notes here to bring up. So General Ray he popped in toward the end of your run.
Yeah.
When the Joe team was in massive transition, they had not exactly had some of their best days. He was brought in. In some ways, it almost kind of tonally reminded me of that scene where Sergeant Slaughter walked in the movie. I'm here to whip you into shape,
Right.
And okay, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read comics from like 10 years ago.
Why would they be watching this if they? Like,
because it's 2 a.m. and they searched Tiger Force and this came up. But but for those of you who don't know, issue 25, the end of Brandon, that first arc when Brandon came in, that big battle on Cobra Island. Still my favorite scene in the comics from that era. Serpentor was, taking over everything. He's got Cobra Commander at his mercy. Cobra Commander totally outsmarts him and kicks him off of a balcony.
Yes.
With the phrase, I actually own the original page of this. I bought it at JoeCon. Yeah, I bought it at JoeCon from Devil's Due. And it was not that, I was shocked that it was available, but it's the whole, you lack the most important DNA of all, mine. Cobra Commander kicks him off the balcony. He's gone. He does a swan dive into the waters, blah, blah, blah. And also the dialogue with Mindbender just killed me to this day. Run, Mindbender. Run as if there's any place you can escape me. You'll never run far enough. Swear to God. Favorite line in all the joke.
That one's mine. That one's mine. I can't remember for the life of me if the kicking off the balcony scene, I can't remember if that was me or Josh. But I legitimately cannot remember.
Love that. But my point being is we think this is the end of Serpentor. It's it's not. And then General Ray shows up and he's this mysterious jet. I mean, this guy is he's good. He is probably like the best damn commander in the U.S. military. This guy's awesome, but his whole past is really, was he always intended to be, as he was revealed to be, Serpentor?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there were options. One was that he was good Serpentor.
Okay.
One was that he was Serpentor. One that he was not. Yeah. So what did they end up doing?
He came back in America's Elite, and there's an issue where basically Duke goes and finds General Ray.
Okay.
And because General Ray showed up with this group, God, it's been forever since I read that volume. He eventually showed back up. He was, the Joes were out of control. He has his own strike team. People are going to kill me for not remembering their name right now. But it's basically a bunch of Cobras in disguise.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And it's like Copperhead and Scrap Iron and Zorana and Firefly. And it always felt weird that Ray did not see this, at all, because he was so brilliant. But anyway, Duke goes and kind of helps him together. No, he didn't know. It was like, he's like, wait, what? But Duke eventually tracks him down and has this whole thing with him and helps him kind of come to terms with the fact that he was Serpentor, but that he was master of his own destiny. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like they did it. It didn't have the weight that it should have.
Right.
Because, I mean, this is freaking Serpentor. This is like a big deal. There are still people out there, they're wrong, who think that Serpentor is cooler than Cobra Commander. They're wrong. But, I always felt like that was sort of an odd thing. But so was there a larger plan before the direction of the book changed so much for General Ray? Or
he was going to play a bigger part. Yeah, he was going to be revealed as Serpentor, but he was going to be working for the Red Shadows.
Ah, okay.
And that whole Red Shadows thing did not end up being what it was intended to be, the way I pitched it or anything. There was going to be crazy stuff. Snake Eyes was going to cut off Serpentor's head. And we were going to find out that Cobra Commander, in the interim between Snake Eyes Declassified and starting Cobra, was actually for some time working for the Red Cat.
Nice.
And owed them a little something.
Ooh.
That they were going to come to collect on.
Okay.
So that's not what ended up happening, and there was going to be an EMP that was going to take out most of the eastern seaboard and shut it down, and everything was going to take place in darkness. But yeah, you know,
for a time machine to make that happen. Damn it!
Hey, listen, not everything goes the way you want it to go, right?
Yeah.
But I thought I was glad, even though I didn't love the final execution so much, I was glad that I was able to bring the Red Shadows in, just because I think that the Joes could fight other people sometimes, just on a lark. I mean, I tried to do that a few times, obviously, with Wingfield and that kind of thing. I love Cobra, don't get me wrong. I maybe love Cobra more than I love the Joes sometimes, but yeah.
After a while, Cobra does cease to have weight if they're always losing. You know, if they're always...
It was unpopular. And again, I took a lot of criticism for having the Joes lose and having the Joes be torn apart and having, you know, things be in upheaval. There were a lot of critics who were just like, when I say critics, I mean fans, fans who were, you know, saying, oh, the Joes are supposed to win all the time. It's like, well, are they? Is that good storytelling? If the Joes just win all the time?
Yeah, because you pretty much beat the heck out of the team for a while there.
Because I believe in them, Fred. That's why.
Yeah.
I believe in them. And you know, that's actually the thing about Storm Shadow. You said it earlier, like he's got bad luck. My take on Storm Shadow is I was just sort of leaning into all the times he's broken his brainwashing. Like, to me, Storm Shadow is a guy who keeps getting sucked back into the same thing and then keeps trying to undo it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't know. Have you ever failed in anything? Because I have. And did it ever take you several attempts to unfail?
Yep.
Because it did me. Like, I think that's real. And I love Storm Shadow as a character, and I hated to see him cast one way or the other because I think he's probably the most conflicted character in all of G.I. Joe.
I agree. I would say that Storm Shadow was actually... Hama did that solo Storm Shadow book for a while at the, near the end of Devil's Due, and I thought that was actually one of the times he was his most interesting. He was most interesting because he was on his own and he wasn't beholden to trying to, oh, my sword brother over here, or oh no, my Cobra Commander's got me brainwashed. He was his own dog for the longest time there.
Yep.
All right, I do want to talk a little bit about what I would assume would be one of the hardest things to write that you worked on, and because if there's ever been a character that everybody has their own preconceived notions about in Joe, it's probably Snake Eyes.
Yeah,
and so you wrote Snake Eyes Declassified 1 through 6, and I guess I just, first of all, what was your reaction to that? Did you pitch it? Did they pitch it to you? And then what was it like to write that and to tell the story of someone that has so much still mystery attached to them to walk the line there?
I don't think I pitched it. It seems like it's something they came to me with after Master and Apprentice, Yeah, that's not something I pitched, I don't think. It was very intimidating. I obviously spent a lot of time looking at Larry's stuff and trying to stay as 100% accurate to that as possible. The of all the comic scripts I've ever written, that one is probably very different because it has so many references to, I want this exact panel from this other book, The one thing I was not allowed to, I wanted to follow up more on, and I'm blanking on the specifics, but Larry mentioned that there was an address that they would go to sometimes. A Rue address, if I'm remembering correctly, and the inference there was, that's where black bag stuff was getting assigned out, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they didn't want me to pursue that for whatever reason. So yeah, it was very intimidating, and I've actually never liked the connection between Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander, but it exists.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to just try to make it, again, I mean, like anything else, I just tried to make it work to my liking and hopefully to the fans' liking. I would not contradict Larry with a gun to my head. So I wanted to make sure I was being very, very respectful of that, because like I wouldn't have been working on that book if that story didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And was obviously very important to me as a writer and a reader. So I definitely was very nervous about it, and the end result obviously was very well received, and I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, that was scary. That was downright scary. Every page, it was just like, well, I hope this is right. Like, you know.
With that being said, how it was received good. Now, of course, you know, not everything's always received good by the fandom. Is there anything? Is there one thing in particular? What? No, I was saying, is there one?
Don't love everything automatically?
No, they don't love everything automatically. They're not like me. They don't love Tiger Force like everybody else. But I mean,
who could? Mike? Who could?
Is there one storyline that you might have written that you would have done differently, or you regret doing it a certain way, or anything of that nature?
Red Shadows for sure. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head if I would have made any big changes. I probably, if I had it all to do again, I probably wouldn't mess with the Joes quite as much as I did. But you know, like overall, I got to do what I wanted. I wish people had liked Master and Apprentice 2 more, because I think it's better than it gets credit for. But nobody hated it. I that I'm aware of. The response was more just sort of, you know, nobody came out and was just like, well, you've ruined Storm Shadow forever. But no, killing off characters is never easy. Killing off a character named Skidmark in a classy way is a real chore. Like, seriously, they give me the list of the dead people, and I'm like, Skidmark, really? Can we just not kill him? And can we just not use him? No, we should get rid of him. Okay, cool.
He needs to be dead.
Yeah. Killing off Flash was the hardest thing ever. That was my first G.I. Joe figure. It was my first G.I. Joe figure, and one of my favorites to this day. That Lady J was tough. Flash was probably the hardest, even more than Chuckles.
Which one that was saved did you not agree with?
Oh, God. Who did I want to kill? There was somebody I really wanted to kill. I kind of wanted to kill Duke. I knew that would never fly. I knew he'd be A-okay. And Diana Davis would hunt me down and murder me. So that's no.
Yeah, she would.
Yeah, my head would be on her desk right now for sure.
Oh, she'd make it last too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like the 3 days of death, you know.
No, I would never want to go up against Diana on a Duke situation. No, I did. There is a thing in G.I. Joe 33, which could be read 2 different ways, and there was a bigger plan. There was a notion that we talked about for down the line, and down the line never happened. There's a scene where Hawk, when he's having his weird, you know, in and out of death dream, that he is sitting between John Wayne and Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes.
2 Dukes, Raoul Duke and the Duke. And what it ends up coming across as, if anybody reads deeper into it, is the duplicitous nature of Duke in the Devil's Due run. However, I had a notion that maybe Duke was not Duke. And that's why he had been so different. And I wasn't sure if I was ever going to follow up on it, but I wanted to plant a little Easter egg breadcrumb in case we ended up going that way. And so it still works on one referential level, but it could have been a hint to a much, much bigger thing with maybe a new Duke or a secret Duke. And if I say Duke one more time, a secret Duke sounds like something you spray to cover up. So yeah, nothing I really regret. I probably should have kept my mouth shut to the fans a little bit more. That probably, I would never regret having that closeness and that sense of community and being open and honest. Being open and honest probably was a little costly to me at times and maybe got me into some hot water. But, I'm not trying to play to the room. I met people like you, Fred, and I met, Andrew Quinson and Todd and Diana, and, you're all a good bunch of people. And that's what I've always loved about the Joe fans. And even, I've had guys say, look, I don't like your work, but I like you. I'm like, cool. I'd love it if you liked my work, but I'll settle for you liking me. That's perfectly fine. And, I don't know. I don't ever know where my status is in G.I. Joe and none of this is whining or complaining. I'm just stating facts. Like, I get invited to a lot of comic book shows. I never get invited to G.I. Joe conventions.
I was just going to ask you if you were actually going to attend.
I'd show up. Happily. I never get invited to G.I. Joe conventions, but I don't see Josh and Tim and, Dan Jolly getting invited to a lot of.
Yeah.
And that may be just that, a lot of people don't like the Devil's Due Run, period. And I get that. And that's not on me personally. It's just, it is what it is. I used to take it super personally, but I'm older and wiser and better looking now.
I feel like when IDW took the license, where Devil's Due said, you know what, there's no way we can supplant Marvel, so we're going to continue it, which I think was a brilliant maneuver. It was the best decision they could have made. G.I. Joe was back in toy stores. G.I. Joe was back in comics. Time had passed.
Yeah.
IDW, when they launched, and they had Chuck Dixon was writing initially, it was a different continuity. But then they relaunched the Marvel run with Larry. And, Larry is famous, I should say, for saying the only continuity he pays any attention to is his own.
Correct.
And so with that decision of having him continue the Marvel run, it pushed Devil's Due into an alternate continuity for a lot of people. And, IDW reprinted it, but it was suddenly G.I. Joe disavowed.
Ouch.
And
ouch.
And for a lot of us, a lot of us, the fandom really reignited around the time that Devil's Due started with the books. It was, the site that I own spun off of the Devil's Due boards back in the day. And, so for a lot of us, there is that love and that nostalgia for that era. Because it didn't try to replace the past. It just took the torch and carried it forward. And if there's any organizers of any comic shows out there listening, get this man to your show. I've known him for years. He's a hell of a resource on Joe. He wrote some incredible stories, so get him in there.
I don't punch babies at conventions anymore.
That's good to know.
Yeah. I learned my fifth time.
Brandon, I always like to ask this of anybody. It's like who worked on Joe and is no longer on Joe. If you had the opportunity, if IDW, said, "Hey, we're looking to do a miniseries or something, or even the main book," would you ever come back to Joe again?
The answer would be 100% unequivocally yes. And I'll tell you this right now. I will say this publicly. I've had a couple of false starts with IDW where I thought maybe something was going to happen and it didn't. And that's just comics and that's fine. I will say that not only would I say yes to whatever it is, because I've softened in the years and you know what? If you want to have G.I. Joe fight Cthulhu, fine. You want to have G.I. Joe fight moon robots? Fine. You want to whatever. Okay. I will say this. If they want to put me on a G.I. Joe book, the answer is absolutely yes. And I don't know. They can pay me less or give half my check to charity. I don't care. I actually had missed writing G.I. Joe so much that oh God, this is sad but true. I was thinking about doing the Kindle Worlds thing.
Oh.
And I decided that literally right before they canceled it.
Oh.
I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then the world was like, no, you're not.
Oh. Well, you wouldn't be alone. Buzz Dixon did one.
No.
Buzz Dixon, which, he picked up a concept for a discarded Sunbow episode and then just darkened it sufficiently when he wrote it because they're decapitating people.
I kicked myself because I had so many people ask me if I would you do this? Would you do this? And I was very intimidated, and prose scares me a little bit too, which is funny. I'm working on 2 novels right now, and they're both giving me hives. But yeah, I really did intend to do that, and then no more.
Well, I know after Devil's Due, you spent quite a bit of time at Dynamite.
Yes,
and you were like Mr. Battlestar Galactica over there for a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I've just been the last couple of weeks. I've been working on a couple of essays for a book. I was approached a book about Battlestar Galactica, and yeah, I think that Battlestar was like definitely some of my best work. And yeah, I was Mr. Battlestar Galactica. That's very true, and I loved it. It's very weird. I actually said in my article that when you're working on something that is actively in production, it's like being hired to put an add-on on a house that's being built by somebody else and still is being built. Like, we had to change things on the fly. There was a Pegasus book where they said I could tell the story of the Pegasus because they hadn't planned to do that yet.
Yeah.
It had showed up on the show, but they weren't going to do a TV movie like they did, or and they said, yeah, go ahead. And so we get this going, and then they said, stop. We're going to do it after all. And the editor, Joe Rybant, God bless him, said, look, this thing is still being drawn, and we can either bail out on it, or you can rewrite it so that it is not the origin story of the Pegasus, and it's just a story about the Pegasus. And that's what we ended up doing, and it saved the book. And it's funny because I look at that one, and all I see is just a giant hot mess because I know where all the seams and the glue is, right? And I had like the guy publishing the book. He's like, "That's my favorite book of yours," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." But like, I did the Tom Zarek book, and I became friends with Richard Hatch, and he wrote the foreword, and he would take the book on cruises. He'd go on these Battlestar Galactica cruises and sci-fi cruises. And he was constantly ordering more books, and he loved it. And he told everybody, "This is the story of Tom Zarek, and this is one of my childhood heroes, right? Yeah. Like, this is Apollo going around." And by the way, my parents are Tom Zarek's parents. They're literally Tom Zarek's
wow.
parents. Extra point of pride there. And yeah, I would love to do more Battlestar stuff. I did turn down classic Battlestar Galactica. They offered it to me a couple times, and I was worried about creatively polluting my own waters, which is stupid. And I've kind of kicked myself ever since because I love classic Battlestar, but I was so immersed in the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to write, a lot of fun to write, and I would do that again in a heartbeat. They don't do a lot of Galactica comics lately, I don't think.
Yeah, it's they're doing this. I don't remember. Dynamite is publishing that where it's literally classic Galactica versus Ron Moore Galactica. Yeah, it's this whole dimensional portal. I've got the issues. I haven't read it because I'm waiting until it's done. But I skimmed through. There's like a wormhole, and you've got Lauren Green and Edward James Olmos staring down each other, and talk about two different tones. I think Starbuck flirts with Starbuck, and
of course,
and of course it's Benedict, of course, going after Katie Sackhoff. But it looks like it'd be a lot of fun.
I finally got to meet 3 years ago at a convention. The guy who handles the celebrities, pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, Battlestar Galactica guy, come over here." And there's Dirk Benedict. And we talked about, Dirk Benedict. I don't know. He was a super nice guy. He was exactly what I expected him to be. Couldn't have been nicer. Loves Richard, obviously. So we talked about that a little bit. Yeah, for a while there, I was actually getting Galactica scripts before the episodes.
Wow.
And that whole New Caprica arc?
Yeah.
Read that in advance. And can I swear on your show?
Oh, we don't care.
Okay. I decided that I had to stop reading the scripts because I read the scene where the Galactica jumps in the lower atmosphere.
Yes.
And I said to an empty house, "Holy shit." And I then I got to stop reading this because I'm too much of a fan. Like,
yeah,
I really wanted to do a New Caprica book.
Okay.
There was so much open space there. I really, really wanted to do that, but that story moved so quickly that it just became kind of an obsolete concept. Like we're revisiting a thing that doesn't need to be revisited. Yeah, God, no, I love it. I will tell you this. I've always scoffed at the idea of rebooting Battlestar a third time because they're talking about a movie, now the Westworld people are talking about making a movie. I did actually, in the process of writing these essays, figure out how I would reboot Battlestar Galactica a third time.
A straight up reboot, not a continuation of
Correct.
Either version.
Yeah, because you know what? I think that, and Dynamite, if you ever want to do this, let me know. I think it would be cool to explore the idea of all this has happened before and it will all happen again.
Yeah.
And I have a take that is different but familiar and combines the two iterations and spins into a third. It's more sci-fi than the Ron Moore version, but more realistic than the Glenn A. Larson version. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, actually.
And it does something different. My take does something different with the Cylons.
Okay, that's intriguing.
Yeah, I'm kind of chomping at the bit about it. This idea is only old, but it kind of won't get out of my head. It's one of those that's going to nag at me and nag at me and nag at me. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see if Dynamite would like to lean into this. All this has happened before stuff because it can be fun. Like if you love Battlestar Galactica, why not embrace that literary conceit, that creative conceit, and just run with it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and again, Dynamite's already pursuing classic and new in this crossover book.
Yeah.
Which had a lizard Cylon in it, which goes deep into old lore.
Yes.
And Count Ibley.
Yeah.
You'll never replace Patrick McNee. I'm sorry.
No,
I love
you
that
absolutely can't. I'm a big fan of Lucifer.
Okay.
I love Lucifer with his lava lamp head and,
Oh, Patrick McNee. God bless America. All right. Well,
isn't he the villain? Is he the villain of the BSG crossover?
I've only skimmed it because I didn't want to read it till it was done.
Okay,
I think they are playing him off as, he's the one that kind of orchestrates it. I'm getting the impression for, because in the original series, he was implied to be the devil.
Right.
In that last shot with the weird, they cut it with the hoof and, we're totally tangenting, but now I really want to go home and watch Battlestar Galactica so bad now.
I'm probably going to do that very soon. I've been thinking about it myself. Yeah, I don't know. I'm right now. My whole life is dealing with the loss of the American, which I thought was the greatest show ever.
Oh yeah.
And if I ever write a spy novel or a spy TV show, it's going to be slow and deliberate and painful like that. But anyway, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to go tangential on you.
All right, Brandon. Well, let me ask you again and again to tie back to G.I. Joe, because I guess that's what we're supposed to do here. you know, if you could do any kind of dream project for Joe, what would it be?
Honestly, God, at this point, I would love to just do any kind of G.I. Joe again. There's a part of me that wonders. I've had this notion of like maybe creating a more. I'm not a big cartoon fan. I'm not a big fan of the Sunbow cartoon to a fanatical degree. I enjoyed it. I grew up with it. But I've always wondered why that interpretation, which is so locked in so many people's heads, is not something that is a continuity in comics.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah, so like a Sunbow-esque title.
Yeah, why not? Isn't that statistically probably the one that's going to appeal to the most people?
Yeah.
Which is not my motivation at all. I don't give a damn if I write a G.I. Joe book and 5 people read it. As long as those 5 people enjoy it and I enjoy it, that's all that matters. But I've always wondered why that is not why there hasn't been a line of action figures that look like the Sunbow character.
They would sell like hotcakes.
Oh, you do a Marvel Legends style line that looks like the Sunbow figures? Just
what size? What size?
What's that?
What size? 3 3/4 or 6 inch?
Oh, 3 3/4. I would like, but 6 inch I wouldn't turn down.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, listen, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. The vehicles would be the problem, right?
Yeah. Vehicles are a problem as it is already. Don't matter which size you go to on vehicles.
Product is a problem these days.
I would love to do product. So yeah, I would love to do a G.I. Joe story set in the future. I would love to do a story set, I don't know, in the past, like something bridging the adventure team and you know the Delta group. You know, damn it,
you're hitting all my buttons. Damn it, man! You haven't said one thing that I wouldn't read and enjoy.
A Tiger Force book.
Well,
yep. See, one reader.
You know, if you take the colors of Tiger Force, as bizarre as they are, and this has been in my mind and your T-shirt's not helping because everything's Jurassic Park these days. If you just said that, you know what, they're the new Dino Hunters, I would read the crap out of that. G.I. Joe.
Yes, absolutely. Send them to space. Have them fight dinosaurs. Apparently, when Devil's Due was doing G.I. Joe, they turned to this young man named Robert Kirkman for an idea because he was friends with him, I guess. He told me this many years later. And he suggested that Cobra have a base on the moon. And you know what? Screw it. Cobra should have a base on the moon. Like, I don't want to just throw every bit of kitchen sink nonsense at G.I. Joe, but I'm willing to. It's fun. They're toys, for God's sake. Can't we just have fun? I just want to have fun. And I want to have fun with G.I. Joe. That's what I would really like.
I would read all of that.
And I'd do more ninjas in a heartbeat.
So, Master and Apprentice Volume 3.
Yes.
The Next Generation.
Actually, from everything I've seen about Dawn, I would not want to do a Master and Apprentice now because I think Dawn is super cool.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Mike, do you have anything else for him?
No, I think I'm pretty good on everything right now.
Hey, hold on. Who's that lady?
My wife, she's...
Mike, watch out behind you.
Someone's going to get me. Oh, my goodness.
It's Tiger Force.
Shit.
And actually, again, so, well, Brandon, thank you for coming on tonight. It's always a pleasure, sir. And, you're always welcome to come back and join us. Mike and I now, we're usually tangent into other Joe-related stuff. If you want to hang out with us, you're welcome to. if you've got an important high-level meeting to go to, or if you just want to watch Battlestar Galactica. We get it. So
I do have an important high-level meeting with some steaks that I see are being applied to the grill very shortly.
Ooh.
That's a high-stakes meeting.
Only if you're in Colorado.
No, listen, thank you for having me on. Thanks for giving a damn after all these years. Like, I'm a footnote at best, and I get it, and I appreciate that some people still like my particular footnote. So thank you for caring.
Hey, thanks for telling some damn fine stories, my friend.
Oh, I forgot to tell you the funny story. I forgot to tell you the funny story, and I'm going to swear again, but I have to. So, no, it's important. It's important. Do you know who Howard Chaykin?
Yes.
Okay. So Howard Chaykin drew the first comic I ever bought, a Star Wars comic. He is a massive icon in the writing industry and the drawing industry and the comics industry. And shortly after I got G.I. Joe, I was on a writer's panel at the Portland Comic Show. Huge room. I am up there with Kurt Busiek, Brian Michael Bendis. Jamie Rich was up there. He's now an editor at DC. And Howard Chaykin is at the far end. There's a couple other people too, and I'm blanking on who they are. People I don't belong in the same room with, as far as I'm concerned. And we are in a conference room. We're sitting on a dais, and and Mark Waid is there too.
Jeez.
There are children in the audience. This is important. There are children in the audience, and Howard is a very outspoken character. And I had met him literally just before this panel, and I said, "You drew the first comic I ever read. Oh my God, it's an honor." Da da da. He was super nice. So we're going down the line, and the question is, how did you get into comics? How long did it take you to get into comics? And like, people are telling stories about it took 10 years and it took 5 years and I got rejected. And I said, actually, I got in on my first try. And Howard Chaykin, my hero, leans over, locks me dead in the eyes and says in front of a room full of children, "Fuck you."
Wow.
And that sort of set the tone for the rest of the panel.
Wow.
And maybe my career. I don't know.
Awesome.
So sorry for the swearing, kids, but
there's only 6 viewers.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Disney. It's okay.
And 2 of them are Fred's parents, so we're good.
Hi, Fred's parents.
My mom's in her 80s. She's like, I just can't figure out how to turn it off.
He keeps turning it on and leaving. I don't know why he does this.
Wow. Is your mom really in her 80s?
Yeah, my mom is going to be 89 this September.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, we did one of the shows, and she clicked on it on her phone, and her phone auto mutes, and she's like, "Well, you were talking, but I just couldn't hear a thing." And I'm like, "It's probably for the best." It's probably for the best, Mom.
Fred's mom. All right. Well, this has been lovely, and I am going to tag out before you move on. But again, thank you, and you know, at the end of the day, we're all just G.I. Joe fans, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whatever's best for G.I. Joe is whatever's best for me. And if I get to be a part of it again, so be it. I'm always ready.
Cool.
Here's hoping, my friend. Here's hoping. Thank you once again, Brandon.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, guys.
Later. All right, Mike. So we've got stuff inbound according to the club now, from what I see.
Yeah. One thing I want to throw out here really quick. A guy had posted on the unofficial JoeCon page I run on Facebook.
Yes.
That he was. Did anyone else get charged a nice deposit yesterday from the Marriott for their reservation? So even if you registered for the Marriott back in August or September, apparently as of June the 1st, they were hitting people up for one night stay. So if you have a room at the Marriott underneath the JoeCon rate, check your bank account to see if you were charged for your room. This was Brian Hummel and David Croft had both mentioned that they had been Now he just commented again. They've both been hit. Now I'm actually staying at the Marriott as well, but we ended up getting a suite off the JoeCon room rate.
Oh wow! So you're in the players' wing, is what you're telling me.
Well, we're in the smart wing because we got 6 or 7 people staying with us.
Wow.
So I mean, my whole room stay is less than one night of what the con rate is.
Good God!
Yeah, you gotta get it cheap, man. We got guys going to sleep in the closet.
Oh, jeez.
He loves the closet. We call him closet.
I remember those days. So there was a time, and we're talking back. I think it was Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So that because again, my active JoeCon days were in the 2000s, and there were 6 of us in a room, and we were so 7 of us. We were so piled in there that one of my friends had an early flight to catch the next morning. So the person in question it's Sam Damon, the one of the the guy behind Joe Declassified. And Sam went to bed next to my friend Todd Winzirl, but then Todd tapped me in the morning. He's like, I was in a sleeping bag. He's like, no, dude, I got a flight. Go take my spot in the bed. And he woke up next to me. And Sam rolls over, and I'm like, morning, sunshine. I just got it up pretty here. He's like, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. What else were you fixing to talk about? Guys, I just wanted to throw that there real quick because they're actively talking about that right now.
Well, we also got the email from Brian just recently that said FSS 7 should be in the Club HQ this week, and we'll start shipping by the end of the week. So, yeah, I know that for me that's a nightmare because I'm a whole wave behind on reviews. So, guess what I'm doing tomorrow? So we'll we've got a shot at what I think is probably the best wave of FSS they've done. This is the wave with
it's better than 8.
Oh yeah, 8's rough.
8 is
8's got to
crush my soul.
8 is not. It's not that 8 has bad designs. It's just that the character roster, it's just not as exciting. 7's the one where they looked at the fences, pointed, and just nailed it. I mean, you're Budo and Crystal Ball, and there's just so and that Tiger Force drinks.
And don't get me wrong, when I down it a little bit, I mean I know it takes a lot to go into these things, and we do, as fans, we do appreciate everything who all is involved. I mean, just granted, it's not everybody's cup of tea.
You know what? Look at the classic line. There are some years that just had a roster that was cooler than others. It's just the nature of the beast. You know what? We talked about him earlier tonight. I'm excited for freaking. I can't call him Treadmark. I'm actually excited for that build of Skidmark.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 is
Cobra Trooper.
No, Skidmark, the Desert Fox driver.
No, but he's built out of that Cobra Trooper.
Oh yeah. I got you now. I mean, there are just moments in time where character choices and design and everything just come together in this rare instance of perfection. And when I looked at that roster the other day, there's like maybe 2 characters that I'm just not super excited about in it. And that's pretty good out of 12. Well, the Ice Viper officer just, I don't really care. He's all right. He's not really the most exciting thing in the world to me. And I'm I don't even remember who the other one is. I mean, I even like Desert Dusty.
I wasn't a fan even after they changed the camo on him. Because remember,
I have no idea.
Changed the camo on him.
I have no idea who they're going to ship. I mean, that's the beautiful thing is, look, by the time you get halfway through the FSS, you're whittling down. Oh, I know it's going to be this guy coming in this month. Oh, Arctic Cobra Commander. He's the other one I could kind of give a wet crap about.
Oh, man.
I know. Blah, blah. Fred sucks. But
no,
you know what? It's just, well, you know what it is? It's like Brandon was saying, he's a huge Arctic figure fan. And I've just,
exactly.
It's not that he's a bad build. I dig him. I like my figures to be the most utilitarian as possible. And an Arctic figure plus with that coat, he can't ever sit down. Whenever you cut off points of G.I. Joe is the greatest 1/18 scale articulated line of all time, in my opinion. And when you put something like that on, it's like you might as well make his legs a statue. But, Jetpack Hawk, Dreadnought Chaos, fresh off of his appearance in Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. We're getting Tomax. We're getting, Budo. I'm even excited about Kangor. Because, he comes with a kangaroo, and that's cool. And Arctic Tundra Ranger Stalker. Like, there's no bad to most of that. There's just two that I'm not as excited about.
Kangor I was really excited for. I'm trying to look here at the pictures now. I thought I had a group shot. I know you were down for Crystal Ball really hard.
Oh, Crystal Ball. And they made it a lenticular. I mean, it's like I signed up for Crystal Ball. I signed up on the very first day of subs with no previews as soon as they said it was open because I wanted Crystal Ball. Period.
Yeah.
Just period. He is so damn weird and so damn quirky that of course he deserves to be in an FSS because he's probably a figure we would never get at retail again.
Yeah.
But there's just something so nuts about a dude that carries that giant, and some of it's Kavanaugh's costume at the 2005, I believe it was Joe Con in Minneapolis. Man, that did it. Like, Crystal Ball is my guy. So, pizza. And it's just one of those things. But that's like the last other big bit of news. I know they've announced some guests again for Joe Con. We're real light on big guests.
They are. If you go back and look at last year's guest lineup, it's similar to the same statue of what they got, except for one voice actor.
Yeah.
Which was Brad Sanders.
Yeah.
And they have not announced any guests, voice actor this year, which, I'm pretty sure we might get a surprise guest, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No,
we're not getting Michael Bell. We're not getting the originals. Nothing.
You're not going to get anybody that's going to cost a lot because I think they're going to be very cost conscious. The other thing I did want to touch on, it's been a while since we had a show, and the fact that Amazon's ending the Kindle Worlds program. That's kind of a big deal for Joe right now. I mean, Kindle Worlds was more than just G.I. Joe. Kindle Worlds allowed writers to publish fiction and make some money on it using other people's IPs. Veronica Mars was one of the debut titles, which, I didn't think there would be that many Veronica Mars fans out there, but I guess there are.
There really are.
But G.I. Joe, here you go. And G.I., there is a metric ton of fiction out there for Joe. And some of it, and it runs the gambit. I mean, it runs the gamut from being, like Jim Sorensen stuff, which is like the hyper historically correct, trying to insert, G.I. Joe and, and reconcile a lot of things with actual historical events, to Buzz Dixon, who, Sunbow guy who takes a script that never got produced, The Most Dangerous Man in the World, and adapts it into a more gritty military tale and releases it. And, to even Jim Beard, who wrote an Adventure Team piece, an actual using the figures and the vehicles from the 70s Adventure Team, and wrote a killer story. And then, Justin Bell, and just, I mean, there's so many people out there, and it's kind of a shame because outside of the comics, that was the other sandbox that we had for Joe these days. I don't know if you've read many of them. They run the gamut between incredibly polished works to, the works of young authors, but it's kind of sad that Kindle Worlds is going away. And like Brandon said, there was like virtually no notice. There were people who were submitting things that were told like, oh yeah, your deadline's like, in 2 days, because we're shutting all this down in, I think it's July. And then it's done. And I don't know if that means if you already bought something, if you're not going to be able to have access to it anymore or what, but it just means that, like, it's just a further tightening of that Real American Hero brand where it's just seeming to go away a little more and more. So,
one other thing that I wanted to, if there are any dealers who are set up for JoeCon that will actually watch the show, or you have a dealer friend, they did post yesterday that it's really strange. It's really worded strangely. Hello, 2018 JoeCon exhibitors. We have sent an email to notify you about a Tennessee tax update. The state of Tennessee has changed their mind. Okay, we're just going to change our mind as to what they want for the show. Please fill out the casual filer registration form and submit it directly to the Tennessee Department of Revenue by next Tuesday, June the 5th. So basically, they're just giving these guys 4 days. There's a link on GIJoecon.com for you to go there and to click on that and print that out, fill it out, and get it in so that you are legal when you go there for the show. With that being said, we're only 18 days away from JoeCon. So
holy crap, I got to pack.
Yeah. And for y'all who don't know, our next show actually falls on Saturday while we're there. Is that right?
Oh, does it? I thought we were the week before.
Are we? That's right. We have one more week. We're still working on that last guest. That's right. Never mind. So we'll have a show Saturday before JoeCon, and then we'll still do a live special at JoeCon once I find a place for us to set up and stay out of the way. I'll just say,
Mike and I are running around like, how many bars are you getting here? I don't know.
You know how funny that is? Is that I literally, and I'm not even lying to you, I was walking with my laptop that day, going from the dealer room to where I finally stopped to where I had a signal. And I sat there as a, this is where I'm doing it.
You know what? I'm tempted to, because I'm getting in Wednesday because of the reservation that if Gandalf Clark, if you're listening, again, I owe you, buddy. I got hooked up with the reservation at the Marriott that I took over for someone. So I'm coming in Wednesday night, and I have nothing to do Wednesday night because I'm not one of the golden ticket holders. So I can't pick up my stuff early. Unlike Mike, who, is in the elite class. I'm one of the peons, but so I might just literally walk around the hotel and try to figure out where we're going to shoot. Because, also see what the beer selection is at the hotel bar. But
that's what I was going to talk to you about. If I'm not volunteering Wednesday night, come on the volunteer list, then maybe we should try to set up kind of like a meetup kind of thing in one of the restaurants or bars.
Yeah.
Usually the bars what we need to do. That's where everyone's going to go get drunk.
Yeah. Hey, look, if anybody actually watches the show and wants to talk to us at JoeCon, just find us.
You don't have to run away from us. It's okay.
I'm always willing to sit down and have a beer with Joe fans and shoot the breeze. I mean, because it's like, for my money, as much as people like to denigrate the fandom, I think Joe fans are some of the greatest people I've ever met.
It's funny you should mention what's his name again? I can't. I'm worse with the names. The Gandalf.
Oh, Gandalf. Yes. How can you not pronounce Gandalf? It was in Lord of the Rings.
I didn't watch Lord of the Rings.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know this is a G.I. Joe show, but damn it, Mike.
Yeah, I know. But anyways, actually last year at Disney, his wife and him came up to me and talked to me, and I didn't recognize them at first, and they told me how they'd watched the show and the page and all that. So, it's surprising people who know who you are that you don't know who they are, until they come up to you. And but we will also have I do have a bag for Fred and a bag for me, and we'll have it with us at JoeCon. The buttons that I had made for us for JoeCon, just come by, say, hey, I want a button, and we'll just hand you a button.
These feature Jesse's killer art that he did of the two of us. So.
Yeah, and Jesse, Jesse's a real good friend of mine. He was actually here. Funny story. Jesse was here 2 weeks ago for my convention. And so Jesse's the last one to fly out Monday afternoon. So I get done my bread route, go to the hotel, pick Jesse up. We come over here, we hang out, we talk. And then we start heading towards the airport. And on the way, I started showing him all the historical sites in Little Rock. Like a lot of people don't know that Central High was the school where they, the Cedric. It was the Little Rock Nine back in the 60s or 60s, where the blacks crossed the line to go to white schools in segregation. And anyways, I showed them the school, showed them different places. We get to the airport. It's about 3:45. We sit in the bar. We drink to about 5. His flight leaves at 5:43. So 5 o'clock comes around and said, hey, I'm going to get going. Have a good flight. Let me know you made it there okay, blah, blah, blah. And I get home. I bullshit you not. I was looking at my stove. It was 5:46. And Jesse called me. And I said, did you leave something in the car? He says, no, I missed my flight. Like, how the hell did you miss your flight? He says, I don't know. The plane wasn't there when I got there.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you what. They rerouted him the next morning at no charge. So
nice.
they screwed up somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I had to go back and pick him up from the airport. He came and stayed the night. And when I took him back the next morning, I'm like, hey, we're not stopping for a drink this time. He says, good.
So if you want to get the buttons, apparently I'm going to have mine. Mike's going to have his. If you want both, if you want the set, if you're really into that sort of thing, it means you got to hunt us both down. Or when we're doing the live broadcast, we may just be throwing them at people.
Yeah, so, no, I get arrested for littering.
Well, yeah. So
we'll have that, and I have the banner is on order. I'll have it next week. So we'll have a 3x6 banner that Kavanaugh said that he would let us put in his booth. I'm still waiting to hear back from him. But if not him, there's a couple other people who have offered to let me put the banner up in their booth. So hopefully Savage doesn't go by and take it down.
And by the way, if you're going to JoeCon, James is going to have a special volume to pick up at the show. Also, our good friend Carson is going to have volumes 5 and 6 of collecting the art. So you're, snag those. Like this last JoeCon is going to go out with a bang because a lot of the fan creators of different media are really stepping up their game. So
for people who did Carson's book on the 6th, all you have to do is just show your driver's license and they'll go ahead and give you your 6th and your money back on shipping. And so you don't have to even worry about, if you already have it on. Like, I've already paid for mine. Yeah. So I'll just pick it up there at the show.
That's what I did. I told him he can keep the shipping from mine because it's the least, because I know the one book went slightly over what part of it went slightly over what he'd collected, and he did it anyway. And it's like, you know what, man, for all the work you've put into this. Right. Yeah. Because, those slip cases are gorgeous.
Nice. They were really nice.
And again, all the Joe books are published differently. Dan had done a slipcase for his. Carson's done one for his. Maybe someday I'll talk Kavanaugh into doing something for his, because these books are things that you're going to want to keep. You want to keep nice and have presented on the shelf. So,
did you send any pictures into Kavanaugh for his yearbook?
Oh yeah, I dug through. I went back through my JoeCon 2005, 2006, 2007, 2009. And then 13 and 15 that I had. And some of what I had is I have a lot, because I was there covering it for JBL. Unfortunately, a lot of my pictures tend to be product focused and, custom. It's the stuff that you do to bring the experience home for folks. So I took pictures of like all the customs, all the dioramas. I have Nova's massive crystal ball battle custom, a diorama that he did. I have pictures of that in there. And somewhere I have that video of James dancing as Latal when he had Latal doing Gangnam Style. That's a video, so I can't send that in. But that's the other thing is if you're in any of the Joe groups, James Kavanaugh is looking. The club, I understand, is looking for photos too.
I never got that email. I wonder why.
Yeah, that's because they don't want your photos.
Probably not.
But yeah, so we are just a matter of like 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks out now. So it's a little surreal to think that in less than that time I'm making a 7-hour drive to Chattanooga in my truck. So hopefully I'll find a good radio station on the way down.
Also, they did this last year. Joe Declassified is doing, I guess, a special cover.
A special print.
Special print with marks.
It's a print that's based on G.I. Joe. When it at its inception at Marvel, Larry had pitched a concept of something called Fury Force, which was the son of Nick Fury and his commando team. It's like a Howling Commandos Generation 2 kind of thing. And it didn't get picked up. And when Larry was tasked with doing G.I. Joe, he turned around and took some of the ideas that he had from Fury Force and melded that into G.I. Joe. So it's kind of a nice nod. It's an alternate take of the cover of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero #1, but featuring the Fury Force concept characters. So, and I don't know if they've got any more sight lines that they're bringing or not, if they still have any of those floating around.
I think they would. They had quite a few left over, because they were only giving them away at certain conventions after JoeCon last year.
Yeah, and you have to have, I know they check like driver's licenses or something, so it's, one per person per ever.
And that's good. That's what it should be.
Yeah. So I thought, and again, because they didn't want somebody getting 50 and then going on eBay and hawking them, because that wasn't the intent behind it. So
no, it wasn't. I mean,
they put a lot of sweat equity into that.
Well, sad case is that people did it anyways.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, that's it for me. By the way, this is kind of odd, but Brandon's shirt was timely. It's funny, this year at JoeCon, Jurassic World opens while we're there. So if you're bored on a Friday and you're looking for something to do while the golden ticket dinner is going on, find me. I'm probably going to try to go catch Jurassic World.
Depends how good the golden ticket reception is this time around. I know there was one year. It wasn't all that great. Last year I got drunk. I get drunk all the time. Didn't matter.
I was going to say that basically Mike turns JoeCon. He starts with JoeCon and then he goes to Betty Ford the next week to
recoup.
But,
now, when I go to cons, man, or even my own convention, there was one night I stayed up with I don't know if you know Robbie Musso. He's done a lot of JoeCon prints and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He came up for the show, and then Jesse was there, and then Josh and Dakota from Cybercast, and then and who else was there out there with us? The guys from the Finest that came down from Kansas City. Chris and Josh came down. I really appreciate them coming down and setting up with us for the show. They actually sat down for a little bit, and we were down there, man. I think I was there till at least 2:45 drinking.
Wow.
And then we ran out, and then I went home. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Fred, are we still working on this guest? Are we locked in yet, or do we know?
Yes. I'm still trying to finalize. If I can get everything organized, it's a very good one, and we will have that announced this week sometime. So 2 weeks from now, keep an eye on the Facebook page, or even JBL's Facebook page, or any of the groups. I try to cross-pollinate, as best I can, and we'll have an announcement of who that is. It's someone that's got a very strong connection to things, Joe, and I think it'll be something people will enjoy. So,
I know I'll enjoy it. Once you mentioned it to me, I was wild on it like white on rice. I was excited. I even talk about it, I'm excited because I know who it is, and I want to talk about it so bad now. But anyways, guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be rearing up for JoeCon, and then we'll be at JoeCon. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. You can find me here, and you can find him at Joe Battleons.
Woohoo! Thanks a lot, guys. And remember, knowing is half the battle.